Hello everyone and welcome to episode 8 of Trans Trucking Talk. This week I'm going to be going a bit more in depth about my experience coming out. That sort of includes coming out to my family, coming out to friends, and the fact that I still have to come out fairly regularly to various different people. So we'll find a job here on the quick job market. We ended last episode in Holbrook, I believe. Let's see. We could go to Grand Canyon. We could go to Santa Fe, but I want to keep this in Arizona. What's this one? That's an important delivery. Okay. Oh, it might be last minute. Standard, high value cargo, heavy cargo, and Arctic trailer. Yeah, sure. This isn't too long a job, I don't think. Let's take it. So, one of the scariest parts of being trans, quite often, is coming out to people. You can never be 100% sure how someone's going to react, especially if you don't know them extremely well. There's our bulldozer. Okay, let's reset our camera and get going. It's decided to engage the parking brake on us. I'm not entirely sure why. Okay, but coming out can be scary if you don't know how someone's going to react, and even if you do know how someone's going to react or have a good idea, it can still be nerve-wracking. It really isn't an easy thing to do. Even though it's getting easier because acceptance and knowledge about trans people just sort of in the general population is definitely increasing. It's still not the most widely known thing. So it's not something that often comes up in conversation either, so it can be difficult to gauge how someone might react by having conversations with them. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with our front left tyre here. We're also speeding. But yeah, coming out can be scary, it can be difficult, you can struggle to know what to say. It seems to only be when we're in that view. Let's put on our indicators here. So I wanted to talk this time a bit about my experiences coming out and just to sort of put my voice into the mix, I guess, because there are a lot of negative experiences out there. And I think it's important to hear those, definitely, but it's also important to hear positive ones where everything goes well. And that's what the vast majority of my experiences have been. I'm struggling to think of a time that I came out and it wasn't well received, so yeah, I think it's important to have multiple different stories out there. So I first came out to my parents, let's see, it was just before I turned 21, so that's 3 and a bit years ago now. But first I had come out to some friends and figured I would ask them to help me a little. This can be a great thing to do if you have friends who you know will be extremely supportive, because in a way family is almost scarier to come out to. Oh dear, this is going well. Because at the end of the day, you can't often choose who your family is, at least by birth. Um, Obviously, you can have chosen families and things like that, but when you have really close friends who you know are very good with these sorts of issues, then they can be a safe bet to come out to first. Um, if you want some support when you're thinking about coming out to your family. So I had talked to some friends and basically said, hey, here's the deal. Um, I think I'm a woman. And they said, okay, what can we do to help? And so I asked them to start calling me Rose, and that fit so well. Like, it felt more natural than I thought it would. Even though at this point I was fairly sure I was trans, I was still somewhat in denial. Like, in the back of my mind, I was fairly sure, but I was like, oh, maybe I should try it out a bit to test a few things and see if that's really how I feel. And as soon as I did, I was fairly sure, yeah, this is for me. This is definitely who I am. Um, so coming out to friends first really helped that because it let me have a safe environment to sort of try that out in, if you like. Um, and that can be a huge thing to have because it allows you to get more comfortable with it. It allows you to form a more rounded opinion on it, I guess. Not necessarily opinion, but a more rounded view of exactly how things are. So for me, for the longest time, I was thinking about my name and what I wanted to do with it. I already knew that I didn't want anything close to my dead name. Um, so I had a list of names that I really liked, and I just picked one at random, honestly. I sort of closed my eyes and put my finger on a bit of paper, and it picked Rose. And so I was like, okay, well, can we try calling me Rose for a bit and see how that goes and see how it feels? And my friends were like, yeah, sure, that's not a problem. Slow down here. So yeah, they started calling me Rose, and that felt really good. It felt like it fit. Um, I liked the name, but there was one other name I was very much considering, which was Luna Rose. Um, but that didn't fit so well with my surname, but I preferred it as a first name. So I was fairly torn for a long time about whether I would actually call myself Rose, but having the safe environment to talk about it in helped all the more to feel comfortable in my choice when I decided, actually, yeah, I am going to be called Rose. I still didn't have any idea what my middle name was going to be at that point. I didn't decide that until after I came out to my parents. But originally the plan was going to be that I sort of tested out being Rose, I guess, for want of a better way of putting it, um, with just these friends for a few months, and see how that went. But and this was probably about November sometime. In early January, I knew I was ready. I was going to visit my mum for Christmas, um, and because I was living with my dad at this time, and I was like, I don't know when I'm next going to see her after this. This is the right time to tell her. So I sat down with her when it was just me and her, um, because I think my siblings were visiting my dad at the same time I was visiting my mum for a little bit, and then they came home a few days before I went back to his. So I sat down with her and said, um, hi, here's the deal. This is what's going on. I think I'm transgender. And she was like, okay, cool. Um, So I said, and I think I've decided I want to be called Rose. And she was like, okay, uh, what do you want to do about telling your siblings? So I was like, well, I I want you and Dad to be the first people to know. Um, so I, so I'm not going to tell them yet. So, um, I guess just call me by, um, my dead name when they're around. And, but just so you know what's going on, this is what's happening with me. And she was honestly absolutely fantastic about it. I couldn't have asked for a better response from her. Um, and I've always known she would be like that. She's always been massively supportive of me, and I can't thank her enough for that. It's I wouldn't change her for the world, honestly. So then I went back to my dad's a few days later, and I said, I've got some good news to tell you. And he was like, oh, okay. So I sat him and my stepmom down at the kitchen table to give them this good news. And I wanted to frame it as good news because I wanted them to know that it was something I was happy that I had discovered. And while I might be scared about it or worried, it's ultimately a good thing for me to have realized. And it's, while it was going to be a big change, it shouldn't be something they should be really scared about. From the get-go, I started out saying, this is something I need to tell you. Don't worry, it's good. So I sat them down and said, I've told Mum about this already, uh, because I thought it was a good opportunity while I was at her house. I think I'm transgender and I want to be called Rose. And um, both my dad and my stepmom were fantastic about that too. Um, they were. It took them a little longer to get out the habit of calling me by my old name, but because I lived there, and um, because I was the only one that lived there, they could. It sort of. It didn't take them too long, but just a bit longer to get used to. Um, so things they and they sort of went out to charity shops to find clothes and um, helped me with talking to doctors and things like that. Are there no traffic lights here? I guess we just go when we can. Um, so yeah, my dad came to the doctors with me when I was talking to the doctor about it, and they've been massively supportive as well. Um, so all of my family has been fantastic, really. After that, it was time to come out to my brother and sisters. So there was one time we were all at my mum's a couple of months later. I think this must have been in February sometime. And we were all sat on the sofa we'd just finished dinner, so I said, okay, there's something I need to tell you guys. I'm transgender. If you have any questions about it, well, no, actually, I did it separately. That's it. I first went to my brother's room, um, and was like, hey, Steve, I need to talk to you about something. My brother's called Steve. Um, and he was like, okay, cool, what's up? And I was like, I think I'm transgender, and so can you start calling me Rose, please? And he was like, yeah, sure. I was like, do you have any questions? He's like, now I kind of know what it is already. Um, and that was a big thing. A lot of my family were already very educated on the subject. Like, my brother had heard about it and knew sort of what it was. Um, so that helped a lot. Um, then, um, then I sat down with the younger of my two sisters and told her the same. And she was like, um, "Oh, cool. I've heard of that and I sort of know a bit about it." So I was like, "Is there anything you want to ask?" And she was like, "I don't think so, but I'll let you know if there is." So I was like, "Cool." And then we were sat down for dinner, and that's when I came out to my other sister, who was also she was like, "Oh, okay." And so all of them were sort of fairly nonplussed. Um, It's not that they didn't care, obviously, it was that they didn't mind and they didn't feel they needed to react in any other way than just, oh, okay, which is honestly, to this day, one of the best reactions to coming out I've got. Um, so yeah, that was really positive as well. Um, there was then I told my stepbrother next, um, because we were at my dad's house again for something, I can't remember what. Um, and we were sat there playing a racing game on my Xbox, and it just so happened that one of the other AI drivers had the same car as me, and he was like, "Oh, that's embarrassing. You've both shown up to the party in the same dress." And I was like, "Haha, funny you mentioned that." Um, and then so I told him that I was trans and that um, I'd like to be called Rose, and he was like, "Yeah, that's cool." He's a bit older than the rest of us. He's sort of in his early 30s, mid 30s. Um, and I honestly don't know how much he knew about it beforehand or if he's researched it or what, but he was fairly sort of, and he asked a couple of questions, like sort of how long have you known, that sort of stuff, which I was more than happy to answer. So, um, but he was sort of slightly curious, but not overbearing, and um, just generally happy that I was figuring something out about myself, which is one of the big things about being trans is it's good that you're figuring that out about yourself because it'll eventually allow you to be a happier person. Um, and then I think after that, my mum told her side of the family, um, and my dad told his, and uh, I got letters from most of them, I think, saying, "Hi Rose, we just want to let you know that we're supporting you in whatever you do. We love you lots, and if you ever want to visit, just let us know." So that was honestly sort of before that point, I hadn't cried in probably a couple of years before I read those letters that I got, and they were. I still have those letters now, so they, it means a lot to me how well my family reacted. Um, and I certainly wouldn't be anywhere near as far as I am along today if they hadn't reacted well. But so yeah, the main point I wanted to make in this video is that you don't just come out once and then you're done, that's it, you're transgender. You have to come out again and again. And this was just for my family. I came out about 5 or 6 times. Um, with places like the bank, you have to come out. You have to come out to your doctor. You have to come out to all sorts of different people that you don't expect. And it's like, it can be difficult to tell if someone knows or what. I think we had a lot of trouble parking in this sort of facility last time, so we're just going to skip the parking. Um, we've also got achievement progress towards heavy deliveries because that was one. So we'll continue here. So yeah, you have to come out time and time again when you're trans. It's not a one-time thing, and I'm still expecting to have to come out multiple more times in my life, for various reasons or another. Even though I've got my change of name, I still haven't um, updated absolutely everything yet, so there's still more of that to do. And while it can be tiring, I'm extremely lucky and extremely happy to have had nothing but positive experiences with coming out in my life. So I wanted to share that just so that if you are thinking about coming out, you know that it's not always doom and gloom. It's not always a sort of harrowing thing to do. obviously, I did know going in that my family are all fairly open-minded and very accepting of LGBT people in general. Um, so I did, I was put at ease a bit by that, um, but that doesn't make it any less scary, I don't think, because there's still the nagging voice in the back of your head that says, "But what if?" And that nagging voice is always going to be there. You've just got to sort of drown it out with sort of logic and but actually no, I know my family and I know that this is something they'll probably react well to. Um, if that is the case, if it's I don't have any experience in coming out to people who I don't think are going to take it well. Um, so I can't offer any advice at all on that subject or any perspective, and I don't think it's my place to say. I think there are plenty of videos on YouTube that talk about coming out to less receptive people and people who have lost their families to coming out, which is really horrible. So I don't want to speak on their behalf, so if that's something that you're worried about, you should go and check out those sorts of videos. This has been a rather rambly ending to my video, but thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next episode. Bye bye.